Hi, everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills. Adam Benigni in Buffalo and Sal Maiorana just outside the press box down at Hard Rock Stadium in the wake of an extraordinarily impressive 31-10 dominating win. The dominance continues by the Buffalo Bills over the Miami Dolphins. Hey, look, Sal, we probably got to start this, definitely have to start this with a discussion of the defense. And so many questions about this group, and justifiably so, coming into this season. They're really beginning to provide some answers. And it's not just that they're doing it, it's how they're doing it and with whom they're doing it in these games.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, again, they start the game without Taron Johnson, who they lost on the seventh play of the game last week. That was already going to be a humongous problem for the Bills facing a Miami team that is so explosive on offense. I mean, you come down here and you think, how are they going to cover guys like Tyreek Hill in the slot, or Jalen Waddle, or Devon Achane, who had a great game tonight? You know, you've got Cam Lewis, Cam Lewis is a nice player, but he's not Taron Johnson. So that was a huge concern just before the game even starts. And then you lose Terrell Bernard, who's your number one tackler last year, the middle linebacker, who was so important. We saw how important he was last year in the playoffs when they didn't have him. You lose him 6 or 7 minutes into this game, and I'm like, how the hell are they going to stop this Miami team? And lo and behold, Baylon Spector comes in. He completely holds up his end of the bargain. I mean, it wasn't great, but he certainly was good enough to get the job done. Cam Lewis plays great again, and Jamarcus Ingram steps into the spotlight when they go to the dime defense, and he makes 2 interceptions. You've got these guys, Adam, there's no way you could tell me Baylon Spector, Cam Lewis, and Jamarcus Ingram are going to come down to Miami and play pivotal roles in a 31-10 blowout. But here we are. It's rather remarkable what they did tonight.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to a lot of things, right? I mean, it's their preparation, right? But it's also, whether you talk Brandon Beane and recognition of the importance of depth and the way that depth can deliver in football games, and coaching too, right? I mean, Sean McDermott, Bobby Babich, I think, deserve a tremendous share of the credit for the design of this thing. I mean, they, again, like week 4 last year, where they put the brakes on that Dolphin offense that had just put up 70 points against Denver prior to that. They figure it out, they adjust. And in this game, I mean, they keep those weapons in front of them. And I thought up front, the interior, the defensive line, all of that, the domination on the line of scrimmage, it all fit together and led to the result that we saw in this game.
Yeah, I mean, look, McDermott has really kind of made a career out of coaching up defensive backs, right? I mean, this has been going on since the moment he showed up in Buffalo. We talk a lot about, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, and then Tre'Davious White early on, the development that those guys made early in their careers, and they became, terrific players for the Bills throughout their careers. Now we've got a new generation of guys that he's taking under his wing. I mean, it hasn't worked out for Kyer Elam yet. Maybe it will. But Jamarcus Ingram, I mean, the guy played at UB. Cam Lewis, 2 guys who played at UB, for crying out loud. Nothing against UB, Adam. They've nice little program they got going over there. But they got 2 guys in the NFL contributing in a big way to a Thursday night victory over Miami. That's really impressive. Damar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp right now are the safety duo. That was another matchup. We come into this game with this new tandem of safeties, and were they going to be able to keep Tyreek Hill from getting open down the field, and Waddle and Achane and Jonnu Smith and whoever else that Miami was going to throw at them? It was a big concern. Adam, nothing ever happened in this game. I mean, really, outside of the swing passes to Devon Achane, which worked. They did they could have used that stuff all night long. I'm not quite sure why they didn't just keep doing it, because the Bills really weren't stopping it. The only time that the Bills made big plays is when Tua threw the ball downfield, right? That's where all the interceptions came from. It was just a testament. It was like I said, it was a master class by McDermott and Bobby Babich, and they just completely outcoached Mike McDaniel, who, he's kind of a boy genius offensive wizard. But man, the Bills have had his number since the moment he walked into the head coaching role down here.
Yeah, let's look at some of the stats to complement the point you just made. Tyreek Hill, 3 catches for 24 yards. Jalen Waddle, 4 for 41. Look at how it translates to the turnovers, which is such an important stat in any football game. 3, twice more they turn it over on downs. Yep. I think it tallies up to like 24 points in all when you combine all of that onto the scoreboard. So it's not just that they're forcing the Dolphins into mistakes. Then, and we'll get to the offense here, they're able to execute. They score on defense as well. I mean, it was just a snowball effect based on the approach that the Bills were able to execute consistently within this football game.
I mean, on defense, they just were really opportunistic, right? I mean, the first series of the game, he tries to throw the ball downfield to a receiver I'd never even heard of. Dubose is his name. I forget what his first name is actually. And I think Benford was in coverage, if I'm not mistaken. And the ball kind of caromed off Dubose's hands. And Jamarcus Ingram, who they're playing dime defense. He's the third safety in that situation. Ball caroms right to him. He goes 25 yards, and boom, the Bills are in the end zone like it's 6 plays later. McDermott going for it on 4th down, too. That was an early statement, by the way. Before we even start talking about the rest of the defense, that was an early statement that McDermott made. He knew, or at least he thought, that they were going to have to score points, and field goals weren't going to do it. That was a 4th and 3. That wasn't like remember last week, he didn't go for a 4th and 3, trying to put Arizona away. In this game, 4th and 3 against this team, we need 7. And it was a great play by Allen too. James Cook went right to the vacated area where they blitzed from, and it was just wide open for the touchdown. Mm-hmm. So a great start to the game, capitalizing on the turnover. Then the second turnover, he just overshoots. I think he was trying to throw to Robbie Chosen. And again, it wasn't Waddle, it wasn't Hill. Those guys were covered. So he had to come off of them, and he's trying to throw to Robbie Chosen, overthrew it. Benford's right there, makes the play. They turn that into a field goal. And then, of course, the play in the third quarter. Look, Epinesa won his rep there. He put the pressure on, and Tua, he gets a lot of heat at him for not having the strongest arm. I mean, he throws the deep ball pretty well, but he doesn't have that, that rocket of an arm like Josh Allen. And he was trying to throw it away there, and he didn't get enough steam on it. And there's Ingram just waiting for it, and boom, right to the end zone for a pick 6. So just really opportunistic. Play by the Bills defense was the key to the victory all night long.
And at the most important times, too, as Sean McDermott alluded to in the post-game press conference, at his initial remarks, he commented on the 4th down defense as well. So it's good to see them execute in those critical situations and to do so consistently in the game. Let's kind of talk for a second here, stick with defense. And look, credit the Bills for the result tonight, but you take Bernard out of there. It's a pectoral. We don't know anything about it. I listened to the post game. You were down there. There's no real update at this point.
Yeah, right? I asked him, and typical Sean, he didn't. He said he knows the area, but he doesn't know the extent. So we're if it's a pectoral, it was like Johnson last week with the forearm. You kind of know that it's probably broken if he couldn't come back in, and then obviously can't play tonight. So I'm assuming this is probably a torn pec for Bernard, and that's not going to be an easy injury. That's going to be, they didn't put Taron Johnson on IR today, which was, I think that was good news. I think they believe that maybe he can get back, if not for Jacksonville, maybe the week after, so he can just be a game day inactive. So that was probably good news. But I think with a pec, that could be multiple weeks. You're not going to have Terrell Bernard. I'm not going to speculate because I don't know. But that was just the sense I got from, when I asked McDermott the question. So, it's a rough injury for the Bills, and they got to figure it out. They figured it out tonight. Now they got to continue to figure out. Now teams have some tape on Bale and Spector. They'll be able to do something a little bit different maybe. But, it's a bad situation to lose these two guys, and Bernard is so valuable to this team.
Right. I credit him for overcoming it against a very good Dolphin offense in this game, but obvious concern as you move forward. They do have sort of a mini bye here now. They start on a short week, the Sunday-Thursday combo. Now they're off through the weekend through next week and don't play until the following Monday night at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So perhaps they get a little bit of a break in terms of time as they try and recover and get things together.
And I think that's probably factoring into the decision on Taron Johnson. I think rather than put him on IR and you lose him for 4 weeks, they're going to see how he makes out over this. It's really a 10-day break now. See how it comes along. Maybe he can get back to practice, next week and then play it by ear. But again, they could always make him a game day inactive, and then hopefully, if he can't play against Jacksonville, they can get him back for Baltimore. But yeah, if you put him on IR today, it's 4 weeks, and he's out until the Jets game.
All right, so let's switch gears and go to offense now, and let's begin that discussion with James Cook, right? 11 carries, 78 yards, average 7.1 yards per carry, couple of touchdowns on the ground, 3 total in the game, 108 yards rushing in all for the Buffalo Bills. What does this say about, we talked about, I mean, you look at that juxtaposed with what Allen had to do through the air tonight, and they're finding answers, and they have so on the ground, dating back to last year when Brady took over for Ken Dorsey. So I guess what does it say about the running game and James Cook in particular, this performance? Yeah,
I mean, it seems to me, now, this game was dictated by some circumstances today, right? I mean, the pick six, they have no possession there, touchdown. James Cook had the one play drive, 49-yard run. The Bills only had the ball for 23 minutes. They only ran 45 plays all night long because of circumstance of how the game flow was going. So that was part of the reason the numbers look the way they do. But Brady has made it clear that he wants to run the ball. I mean, he wants to lessen the burden on Josh Allen. Josh only ran twice tonight, and they were both little scrambles for 2 yards. He wants to hand the ball to James Cook. He got Ray Davis involved. I mean, Davis was in there early. I think he had like 3 carries for maybe 15 yards in the first half. And then in the second half, when they were trying to put it away, they took Cook out, and Davis did a nice job. So they want to run the ball. There's no doubt about it. This is 2 weeks in a row now. They've called more running plays than passing plays. Some fans are going to probably want to bang their heads against the wall because they want to see Josh Allen throwing the ball. But, Adam, this offensive personnel right now is not geared to that type of game. They do not have the same explosive attack that they've had in recent years. Right now, there's no downfield passing in this offense, Adam. I mean, they threw a couple balls to Shakir downfield tonight, but Keon Coleman, total goose egg, zero catches on the 1 target. Samuel did almost nothing. They got Kincaid involved a little bit, but he ends up with 33 pretty harmless yards. They've got to figure that out because there's going to be a time when they're not going to be able to run the ball, and they're going to have to rely on this passing game. And Allen does not have the same type of weapons that he's had in years past. And that could become a problem, down the road here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he winds up 13 of 19, 139 yards and a touchdown. And when you combine where teams will try and take away the run, and as these injuries compound defensively, you would think that teams are going to be able to score. So that all kind of speaks to your point about, the need for explosiveness. I think that's something as you emerge from this game, that's still, I think they're starting to answer some questions on defense. They still loom large in the midst of the injuries, but the state of that passing game, they're 2-0 to their credit, but we still haven't seen really legitimate answers there yet.
No, we really haven't. I mean, Khalil Shakir, I think he's the best receiver on the team, and it's not even particularly close. I mean, you throw the ball to that guy, he catches it. Today it was 5 for 5. He had the big play down the middle, 21 yards. And he got nailed by Jordan Poyer, personal foul. So that ends up being a 36-yard play. That was the only sustained drive the Bills had all night. That's the one where they took over at their 15 after a punt, and they went 85 yards. Everything else was a short field because of turnovers, which is great, but they didn't have to work too hard on offense to get points in this game except for the one drive. So there are going to be times when you're starting the ball at the 20-yard line 4 or 5 times in a game, and you've got to move the ball down the field. And I'm not seeing it in these first 2 weeks in terms of the wide receivers getting downfield and making chunk plays. It's not happening yet. Again, I don't know if they would have been able to do that tonight against this team. Miami has a good secondary. Poyer and Holland are really good safeties. Jalen Ramsey, it might have been a different game if Miami hadn't turned the ball over as often as they did. I'm not sure the Bills passing game would have been up to the task. So, yeah, that's something Brady's got to figure out here moving forward.
And certainly a disturbing aspect from this game to see Tua Tagovailoa go down again with a concussion.
Yeah.
And we've had prior to this, 2 confirmed and 1 suspected. And then to see that happen tonight and quickly diagnosed as soon as he got into the Dolphin locker room. You think about my heart just goes out to the guy, right? I mean, you think about all the optimism, the leadership he was starting to show. He's got his new contract. You feel like there's this kind of this groundswell in Miami that this is a team on the rise, and he's the centerpiece of that with so much promise. And now, I mean, his future is very much in question. Coming out of this tonight.
Yeah, we're up in the press box, and they pipe in McDaniel's press conference to the press box. So we were listening, trying to do work, but we were listening to him talk about this, and it's sobering to hear. He was shook. I think their whole team was shook by this. And how ironic was it, Adam, that it was Damar Hamlin's chest who he banged into, right? I mean, that was the first thing I thought of was how ironic is this, that Damar Hamlin is the guy that he hit. And it wasn't a cheap shot by Hamlin. I mean, Tua kind of put his head down, trying to get down there. And Hamlin came up to make the play. And it was just, it was very similar to what T. Higgins did to Damar Hamlin 2 years ago, right? So it was pretty strange. And it was scary. I mean, he was down for a while. It was good that he got up and walked under his own power. But you can tell that it was most likely, almost assuredly, a concussion. And, from a competitive standpoint, that's a problem for Miami now. Skylar Thompson, he almost beat the Bills in a playoff game, but I don't think they're going to be doing a whole lot with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. That's a problem for a division rival for the Bills.
Yeah, so, I mean, only 2 games in and still so much ground to cover and so many questions to answer and injuries to resolve and all of those things. But a huge factor as you look forward now emerging from this, again, a 31-10 win for the Buffalo Bills in Miami tonight. So to kind of wrap this up here, I mean, I suppose what's the real takeaway? I mean, we talked about how difficult the front end of their schedule was going to be, and this was the game. I figured they'd get by Arizona at home, but this was the game that everyone kind of had circled as okay. And I think, you don't want to read too much in this early, but I'm very impressed, especially with the defensive effort. With what I've seen so far. I mean, I think this is going to be a very competitive football team. Well, you had talked about them being a 10-win team. You had them that way all along. So, and I guess what I'm saying is, despite the injuries and acknowledging the injuries starting to pile up on the defensive side and questions about the passing game, I've seen nothing that suggests they can't get that done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to feel better about my 10-win prediction because I certainly had them 1-1 coming out of these first 2 games. I did not. I picked Miami to win the game tonight. I didn't think Buffalo. I didn't like the matchup, especially without Taron Johnson. And then they lost Bernard. I was feeling like, hey, I'm going to have this one right tonight, and that totally went out the door. So the schedule does not get a whole lot easier. Jacksonville's an interesting team. I'm not quite sure what to make of Jacksonville yet. Jacksonville should have beaten Miami last week here, right? Mm-hmm. It should have been 24-7 in the third quarter before ETN fumbled the game away there. So they come to Buffalo next. You got to believe that, on a Monday night in Buffalo, the Bills will get that job done and be 3-0. And then it gets gets really hard, Adam. They got to go to Baltimore and Houston and the Jets 3 weeks in a row. So that made this win even more important, right? I mean, we talked about last week how they couldn't stub their toe because of what was coming. To get this one really feels like they put a feather in their cap because, as we said, they've got some tough roads to hoe coming up here.
Yeah, I mean, 4 straight division titles. They clinched their 4th to end the regular season right there at that stadium, Hard Rock Stadium last year. They come back down there. Week 2 tonight, win convincingly 31-10. Josh Allen, 12-2 now in his career against the Miami Dolphins. Sean McDermott.
And he didn't have to do anything tonight.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
this is the guy who's won 5 AFC Player of the Weeks playing against Miami. He has tortured them, and the Dolphins fans have just got to be banging their heads against the wall. That the Bills' offense really didn't have to do anything tonight. Josh Allen was barely a factor. He might have thrown. I think Josh might have made 3 or 4 really good plays in this game, and everything else, I called him a game manager in my report card. He literally was a game manager tonight. And still the Bills beat them by 21 points. So, yeah, if you're a Miami fan, you got to be banging your head against the wall.
And if you're a Buffalo fan, I think, you know what? Put that in perspective. That's a positive sign. That other parts of this team, it's not Josh having to put everything on his shoulders and carry him. Those days will come, and those games will come. But in this matchup, it was anything but that. And you talked about masterclass. Sean McDermott, 14-2 now during his tenure as head coach of the Buffalo Bills against Miami. And as Buffalo, the Bills PR staff put out, the 14 wins, the most against a single opponent since 2017 when McDermott became the head coach.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen. That's not a coincidence. That is complete and total domination.
We talked about the 1970s in our last episode, right?
Right.
And how it's all coming around to roost right now. The Bills own this team. It's it's nice. Believe me, I've been around this Buffalo-Miami rivalry for 50 years of my life. This is a nice way to do it.
All right, so 31-10 the final. Bills now 2-0 with the Jacksonville Jaguars coming to Orchard Park a week from Monday for Monday Night Football. For Sal Maiorana at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, I am Adam Benigni in Buffalo. Thank you so much for being with us here on Believe in Bills.